"He murdered 13 people," said Harry, handing the page back to Stan. "With one curse?" "Yep," said Stan, "in front of witnesses and all. Broad daylight. Big trouble it caused, didn't it, Ern?" Said Ern darkly. Stan swiveled in his armchair, his hands on the back the better to look at Harry. "Black was a big supporter of you-know-who," he said. "What, Voldemort?" said Harry without thinking. Even Stan's pimples went white. Ern jerked the steering wheel so hard that a whole farmhouse had to jump aside to avoid the bus. "You out of your tree?" yelped Stan. "Did you say his name for?" "Sorry," said Harry hastily. "Sorry, I forgot." "Forgot," said Stan weakly. "Blimey, my heart's going that fast." So Black was a supporter of you-know-who?" Harry prompted apologetically. "Yeah," said Stan, still rubbing his chest. "Yeah, that's right. Very close to you-know-who, they say. Anyway, when little Harry Potter put paid to you-know-who, Harry nervously flattened his fringe down again. All you-know-who's supporters was tracked down, wasn't they, Ern? Most of them knew it was over with you-know-who gone, and they came quiet. But not Sirius Black. I heard he thought he'd be second in command once you-know-who had taken over. Anyway, they cornered Black in the middle of a street full of muggles, and Black took out his wand and blasted half the street apart, and a wizard got it, and so did a dozen muggles what got in the way. 'Orrible, eh? And you know what Black did then?" said Stan continued in a dramatic whisper. "What?" said Harry. "Laughed," said Stan. "Just stood there and laughed. And when reinforcements from the Ministry of Magic got there, he went with them quiet as anything, still laughing his head off." "'Cause he's mad, ain't he, Ern? Ain't mad. If he weren't when he went to Azkaban, he will be now," said Ern in a slow voice. "I'd blow myself up before I set foot in that place. Serves him right, mind, after what he did." "They'd had a job covering it up, didn't they, Ern?" Stan said. "All street blown up and all them muggles dead. What was it they said had happened, Ern?" "Gas explosion," grunted Ernie. "And now he's out," said Stan, examining the newspaper picture of Black's gaunt face again. "Never been a breakout from Azkaban before, has there, Ern? Beats me how he did it. Frightening, eh? Mine. I don't fancy his chances against them Azkaban guards, eh, Ern?" Ernie suddenly shivered. "Talk about someone else, Stan. There's a good lad. Them Azkaban guards give me the collywobbles." Stan put the paper away reluctantly, and Harry leant against the window of the night bus, feeling worse than ever. He couldn't help imagining what Stan might be telling his passengers in a few nights' time. "Hear about that Harry Potter? Blew up his aunt. We'd had him here on the night bus, didn't we, Ern? He was trying to run for it. He, Harry, had broken wizard law just like Sirius Black. Was inflating Aunt March bad enough to land him in Azkaban? Harry didn't know anything about the wizard prison, though everyone he'd ever heard speak of it did so in the same fearful tone. Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, had spent 2 months there only last year. Harry wouldn't soon forget that look of terror on Hagrid's face when he had been told where he was going, and Hagrid was one of the bravest people Harry knew. The night bus rolled through the darkness, scattering bushes and boulders, telephone boxes and trees, and Harry lay, restless and miserable, on his feather bed. After a while, Stan remembered that Harry had paid for hot chocolate, but poured it all over Harry's pillow when the bus moved abruptly from Anglesey to Aberdeen. One by one, wizards and witches in dressing gowns and slippers descended from the upper floor to leave the bus. They all looked very pleased to go. Finally, Harry was the only passenger left. "Right then, Neville," said Stan, clapping his hands. "Whereabouts in London?" "Diagon Alley," said Harry. "Right too," said Stan. "Hold tight then." Bang! They were thundering along Charing Cross Road. Harry sat up and watched buildings and benches squeezing themselves out of the night bus's way. The sky was getting a little lighter. He would lie low for a couple of hours, go to Gringotts the moment it opened, then set off. Where, he didn't know. Ern slammed on the brakes, and the night bus skidded to a halt in front of a small and shabby-looking pub, the Leaky Cauldron, behind which lay the magical entrance to Diagon Alley. "Thanks," Harry said to Ern. He jumped down the steps and helped Stan lower his trunk and Hedwig's cage onto the pavement. "Well," said Harry, "bye then." But Stan wasn't paying attention. Still standing in the doorway to the bus, he was goggling at the shadowy entrance to the Leaky Cauldron. "There you are, Harry," said a voice before Harry could turn. He felt a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, Stan shouted, "Blimey, Ern, come here, come here." Harry looked up at the owner of the hand on his shoulder and felt a bucket full of ice cascade into his stomach. He had walked right into Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic himself. Stan leapt onto the pavement beside them. "What did you call Neville, Minister?" he said excitedly. Fudge, a portly little man in a long pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted. "Neville?" he repeated, frowning. "This is Harry Potter." "I knew it," Stan shouted gleefully. Ern, guess who Neville is, Ern? He's Harry Potter. I can see his scar." "Yes," said Fudge testily. "Well, I'm very glad the night bus picked Harry up, but he and I need to step inside the Leaky Cauldron now." Stunned, Fudge increased the pressure on Harry's shoulder, and Harry found himself being steered inside the pub. A stooping figure bearing a lantern appeared through the door behind the bar. It was Tom, the wizened, toothless landlord. "You've got him, Minister," said Tom. "Will you be wanting anything? Beer, brandy?" "Perhaps a pot of tea," said Fudge, who still hadn't let go of Harry. There was a loud scraping and puffing from behind them, and Stan and Ern appeared, carrying Harry's trunk and Hedwig's cage and looking around excitedly. "How come you didn't tell us who you are, Neville?" said Stan, beaming at Harry, while Ernie's owlish face peered interestedly over Stan's shoulder. "And a private parlor, please, Tom," said Fudge pointedly. "Bye," Harry said, and miserably to Stan and Ern as Tom beckoned Fudge toward the passage that led from the bar. "Bye, Neville," called Stan. Fudge marched Harry along the narrow passage after Tom's lantern, and then into a small parlor. Tom clicked his fingers. A fire burst into life in the grate, and he bowed himself out of the room. "Sit down, Harry," said Fudge, indicating a chair by the fire. Harry sat down, feeling goosebumps rising up his arms despite the glow of the fire. Fudge took off his pinstriped cloak and tossed it aside, then hitched up the trousers of his bottle-green suit and sat down opposite Harry. "I'm Cornelius Fudge, Harry, the Minister of Magic." Harry already knew this, of course. He had seen Fudge once before, but he had been wearing his father's invisibility cloak at the time. Fudge wasn't to know that. Tom, the innkeeper, reappeared, wearing an apron over his nightshirt and bearing a tray of tea and crumpets. He placed the tray on a table between Fudge and Harry and left the parlor, closing the door behind him. "Well, Harry," said Fudge, pouring out tea, "you've had us all in a right flap, I don't mind telling you. Running away from your aunt and uncle's house like that, I'd started to think, but you're safe, and that's what matters." Fudge buttered himself a crumpet and pushed the plate towards Harry. "Eat, Harry, you'll look dead on your feet. Now then, you will be pleased to hear that we have dealt with the unfortunate blowing up of Miss Marjorie Dursley. 2 members of the Accidental Magic Reversal Squad were dispatched to Privet Drive a few hours ago. Miss Dursley has been punctured and her memory has been modified. She has no recollection of the incident at all, so that's that, and no harm done. Fudge smiled at Harry over the rim of his teacup, rather like an uncle surveying a favorite nephew. Harry, who couldn't believe his ears, opened his mouth to speak, couldn't think of anything to say, and closed it again. "Ah, you're worrying about the reaction of your aunt and uncle?" said Fudge. "Well, I won't deny that they are extremely angry, Harry, but they are prepared to take you back next summer as long as you stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays." Harry unstuck his throat. "I always stay at Hogwarts for Christmas and Easter holidays," he said, "and I don't ever want to go back to Privet Drive. I don't ever want—" Now, I'm sure you'll feel differently once you've calmed down," said Fudge, in a worried tone. "They're your family, after all, and I'm sure you're all fond of each other, very deep down." It didn't occur to Harry to put Fudge right. He was still waiting to hear what was going to happen to him now. "So all that remains," said Fudge, now buttering himself a second crumpet, "is to decide where you're going to spend the last 3 weeks of your holidays. I suggested you take a room here at the Leaky Cauldron and—" "Hang on," blurted Harry. "What about my punishment?" Fudge blinked. "Punishment? I broke the law," Harry said. "The decree of the restriction for underage wizardry." "Oh, my dear boy, we're not going to punish you for a little thing like that," cried Fudge, waving his crumpet impatiently. "It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban just for blowing up their aunts." But this didn't tally at all with Harry's past dealings with the Ministry of Magic. "Last year, I got an official warning just because a house elf smashed a pudding in my uncle's house," said Harry, frowning. "The Ministry of Magic said I'd be expelled from Hogwarts if there was any more magic there." Unless Harry's eyes were deceiving him, Fudge was suddenly looking awkward. "Circumstances change, Harry. We have to take into account in the present climate. Surely you don't want to be expelled." "Of course I don't," said Harry. "Well then, what's all the fuss about?" laughed Fudge airily. "Now, have a crumpet, Harry, while I go and see if Tom's got a room for you." Fudge strode out of the parlor, and Harry stared after him. There was something extremely odd going on. Why had Fudge been waiting for him at the Leaky Cauldron, if not to punish him for what he'd done? And now Harry came to think of it. Surely it wasn't usual for the Minister of Magic himself to get involved with matters of underage magic. Fudge came back, accompanied by Tom the innkeeper. "Room 11 is free, Harry," said Fudge. "I think you'll be very comfortable. Just one thing, and I'm sure you'll understand. I don't want you wandering off into Muggle London, all right? Keep to Diagon Alley. And if you're to be back here before dark each night, sure you'll understand. Tom will be keeping an eye on you for me." "Okay," said Harry slowly, "but why?" "Don't want to lose you again, do we?" said Fudge with a hearty laugh. No, best we know where you are. I mean—" Fudge cleared his throat loudly and picked up his pinstriped cloak. "Well, I'll be off. Plenty to do, you know." "Have you had any luck with Black yet?" Harry asked. Fudge's fingers slipped on the silver fastenings of his cloak. "What's that? Oh, you've heard. Well, no, not yet, but it's only a matter of time. The Azkaban guards have never yet failed, and they're angrier than I've ever seen them." Fudge shuddered slightly. "So I'll say goodbye." He held out his hand, and Harry, shaking it, had a sudden idea. "Minister, can I ask you something?" "Certainly," smiled Fudge. "Well, third years at Hogwarts are allowed to visit Hogsmeade, but my aunt and uncle didn't sign the permission form. Do you think you could?" Fudge was looking uncomfortable. "Ah," he said. No, I'm very sorry, Harry, but as I am not your parent or guardian." "But you're the Minister of Magic," said Harry eagerly. "If you give me permission—" "No, I'm sorry, Harry, but rules are rules," said Fudge flatly. "Perhaps you'll be able to visit Hogsmeade next year. In fact, I think it best if you don't. Yes, well, I'll be off. Enjoy your stay, Harry." And with a last smile and shake of Harry's hand, Fudge left the room. Tom now moved forward, beaming at Harry. "If you'll follow me, Mr. Potter," he said, "I've already taken your things up." Harry followed Tom up a handsome wooden staircase to a door with the brass number 11 on it, which Tom unlocked and opened for him. Inside was a very comfortable-looking bed, some highly polished oak furniture, and a cheerfully crackling fire, and perched on the top of the wardrobe— "Hedwig!" Harry gasped. The snowy owl clicked her beak and fluttered down onto Harry's arm. "Very smart owl you've got there," chuckled Tom. "Arrived about 5 minutes after you did. If there's anything you need, Mr. Potter, don't hesitate to ask." He gave another bow and left. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig. The sky outside the window was changing rapidly from deep velvety blue to cold steely gray, and then slowly to pink shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe that he'd only left Privet Drive a few hours ago, that he wasn't expelled, and that he was now facing 3 completely Dursley-free weeks. "It's been a very weird night, Hedwig," he yawned. And without even removing his glasses, he slumped back onto his pillows and fell asleep.